The 5 Deadliest Martial Arts Styles by David Russo. The fight with no escape. 5 fighters step into a ring. No gloves. No restrictions. No one to stop the action. They all share the same physical ability, the same mindset, the same experience. Only one thing sets them apart: the discipline they practice. They begin on their feet. But it won't stay that way for long. Every fight unfolds across different distances, different layers. And once it crashed to the ground, everything shifts. As Bruce Lee once said, "Be water, my friend." Water doesn't just hit, it moves, it reshapes itself, it consumes. In a fight like this, survival belongs to the one who can adapt without hesitation. Introduction. From movies to mats. Martial arts shaped my life early on. Weekdays meant training sessions. Weekends meant hours lost in kung fu films. I can still picture myself sitting on the floor, glued to the screen watching 5 Deadly Venoms. Each character brought a specialized skill and a critical flaw. That concept stayed with me. Real strength wasn't just physical, it came from awareness, timing, and understanding vulnerabilities. As I expanded into striking, grappling, and even weapons training, reality hit. Fights aren't cinematic. They close distance. They tangle. They collapse to the floor. They become unpredictable and rough. There's no elegance, only effectiveness. And more importantly, fights aren't fair. They don't respect rank, tradition, or style. They only reward what works in real time. That realization changed everything. Relying on a single discipline leaves gaps. Combat happens across ranges, and each range demands different tools. Kicks from afar, punches up close, clinch work in tight quarters, and the ground where many fights truly end. This isn't just a breakdown of martial arts systems. It's about seeing combat as it actually unfolds, not as it's performed. By the end, it becomes clear. No single system rules every situation. The most dangerous fighter isn't the strongest or fastest, it's the one who adjusts. Because when it's real, nothing else matters except what you can actually execute. As Bruce Lee put it, absorb what is useful, discard what is not. Chapter 1. The 3 ranges of combat. Every fight operates within 3 core distances, and one that's often ignored. Knowing how they work can determine the outcome. Long range, kicking distance. At this distance, the legs take control. Kicks allow you to strike while staying out of reach. Managing space and timing is key, but one miscalculation can collapse the distance instantly, stripping away that advantage. Mid-range, punching distance. Move closer, and hands become the primary weapons. Punches, elbows, and rapid combinations dominate here. Precision matters. Openings appear and disappear in fractions of a second, and a single mistake can end everything. Close range, the clinch and grappling. Now it's no longer just about striking. Bodies connect. Knees land. Opponents fight for control through grips and positioning. Strength helps, leverage, balance, and control matter more. This is where fights start to turn. Ground range, the overlooked battlefield. Most people ignore the ground, but that's where many fights are decided. Submissions, chokes, joint locks, and positional control come into play. Here, technique outweighs size. A smaller, trained fighter can neutralize and defeat a stronger opponent through leverage and precision. Many believe fights are one standing. That assumption fails quickly in reality. Combat isn't limited to one phase. It's about understanding all of them and dictating where the fight takes place. Because dominance in one range means nothing if the fight shifts elsewhere. The most dangerous fighters aren't just powerful, they're complete. They move fluidly between ranges, adapting in real time. As Joe Louis once said, a champion doesn't talk, he lets his fists do the talking. Chapter 2. The missing piece. Wrestling. Before submissions, before ground strikes, before any of the flashy techniques you've seen in movies, there's one skill that often decides the fight: control of where it happens. And that's where wrestling comes in. Wrestling isn't about flashy moves or knockout punches. It's about balance, pressure, and dominance. A wrestler controls the pace, the position, and ultimately, the outcome. They decide whether the fight stays standing or goes to the ground. They decide when to strike and when to smother. In other words, they call the shots. A wrestler's toolkit is simple but devastating. Takedowns, bringing the fight to their preferred range. balance, making it nearly impossible for the opponent to escape or counter. Top control, applying constant pressure that drains strength and morale. Positional dominance, forcing the fight into their hands. Step by step, strengths are clear. A skilled wrestler can overwhelm opponents, dictate the fight, and set up finishing techniques. Weaknesses, depending on the style, a pure wrestler might lack advanced submission knowledge or powerful striking. But make no mistake, the wrestler doesn't ask where the fight goes. They decide. Think about it. Even the most dangerous striker, the most precise kicker, or the most flexible grappler is vulnerable if they are forced into a position they can't handle. Wrestling gives a fighter the ability to choose their battlefield. And in combat, that's everything. The truth is simple. You can be lightning fast, insanely strong, or technically perfect, but if you can't control where the fight happens, someone else will. And in that moment, all your strengths might not matter. Judo, master of throws. Judo is the art of using your opponent's strength against them. Every throw, sweep, and hip movement is designed to turn momentum into control. A skilled judoka doesn't rely on brute strength, they rely on timing, leverage, and the ability to read an opponent's balance in an instant. Strengths, controls where the fight happens by taking the opponent to the ground efficiently. Throws and trips allow a smaller fighter to neutralize a larger opponent. Excellent transitions from standing combat to grappling and groundwork. Limitations. Judo is primarily about throws and takedowns. It doesn't specialize in striking. Ground submissions exist, but they are limited compared to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Sambo. A fighter who can evade or counter takedowns can neutralize much of its advantage. Judo proves a critical point. Controlling the fight isn't just about strength, it's about leverage, timing, and choosing the battlefield. Even the most devastating striker is vulnerable if they can't defend against a well-timed throw. Problem: exceptional throws and takedowns, limited striking. Reality: dominant when dictating where the fight goes. Challenged against long-range strikers or ground specialists. Don Gable. Gold medals aren't really made of gold. They're made of sweat, determination, and hard-to-find alloy called guts. Chapter 3. Ground fighting, where fights really end. Once the fight hits the ground, everything changes. Strikes that dominated from a distance lose their power. Movement is no longer about speed. It's about pressure and control. Technique becomes survival, and survival demands understanding leverage, angles, and position. This is where arts like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and traditional Jiu-Jitsu shine. A smaller, weaker fighter can defeat a larger, stronger opponent not through brute force, but through precise application of technique. It's about position before submission, not brute strength. It's about applying chokes, joint locks, and control that end the fight instantly. On the ground, the rules are different. A punch or kick is no longer king. Instead, control and dominance matter most. Every grip, every shift of weight, every subtle adjustment can decide victory or defeat. The larger person may have the power, but the skilled ground fighter has the leverage. Here's the reality most fighters ignore. Many fights aren't one standing. They end on the ground, where strength alone isn't enough. A smaller person who understands leverage, timing, and technique can neutralize size and power and finish the fight efficiently. That's why ground fighting is the missing piece for most martial artists. Without it, a fight can turn in an instant. The one who knows how to survive and dominate on the ground holds a decisive advantage, one that often determines the winner before the crowd even knows it. In short, if you want to be truly dangerous, you can't just master striking or kicks. You have to understand the battlefield where fights really end on the ground. Sambo, catch wrestling. The aggressive grappler. Sambo and catch wrestling are hybrid grappling systems built for control, submission, and aggression on the mat. Unlike traditional BJJ, which often emphasizes positional patience, these arts teach fighters to dominate with relentless pressure, leg locks, and dynamic transitions. Strengths: aggressive takedowns and sweeps allow a fighter to dictate where the fight goes. Leg locks, chokes, and joint attacks expand the ground fighting arsenal beyond typical BJJ techniques. Trains fighters to maintain control under chaotic, high-pressure situations. Limitations. Striking is minimal or absent. Pure Sambo. Catch wrestling practitioners are vulnerable in stand-up exchanges. Requires physical toughness, and conditioning control relies on constant pressure. Without complementary striking, a fighter can be exposed before securing grips or takedowns. Sambo and catch wrestling demonstrate a key principle: ground dominance in just about submissions. It's about controlling the fight aggressively and refusing to let the opponent escape. When combined with striking or wrestling, this type of grappler becomes nearly impossible to neutralize. Problem: dominant on the ground, limited standing striking. Reality: devastating when controlling the fight on the mat. Challenged outside their specialty. Jeet Kune Do, the philosophy of adaptability. Jeet Kune Do, created by Bruce Lee, is not a traditional martial art, it's a philosophy of fighting. Its central idea is simple: absorb what is useful, discard what is not. Instead of adhering to rigid techniques or a single range, it teaches fighters to adapt fluidly to any situation, combining elements from multiple disciplines as the fight demands. Strengths: promotes flow across all ranges, standing, clinch, and ground, allowing a fighter to switch seamlessly between striking and grappling. Emphasizes economy of motion and efficiency. Techniques are stripped of unnecessary flourishes, leaving only what works in the moment. Trains the mind to read opponents, anticipate attacks, and exploit openings, making adaptability a weapon itself. Limitations: Jeet Kune Do relies on the practitioner's cross-training and experience. It's not a complete system on its own, without a solid foundation in other arts, striking, wrestling, or ground fighting. A fighter may struggle to implement its principles effectively. Jeet Kune Do proves the ultimate truth: no single style dominates every fight. Mastery of one range or one set of techniques can make a fighter dangerous, but true lethality comes from adaptability, awareness, and the ability to flow with the fight. Problem: depends on practitioner's experience, not a standalone system. Reality: turn specialization into versatility, bridging all ranges and techniques. Helio Gracie, Technique Conquers All. Chapter 4, Updating the Rankings. The Reality Check. Now that we understand ranges long, mid, close, and ground, the way we think about martial arts changes. A deadly style, judged by flashy strikes, high kicks, or legendary speed alone. It's judged by adaptability, by how a fighter handles the moments they aren't prepared for. Because every fight is unpredictable, every opponent is different, and the fight doesn't care about your specialty. Think about it. A striker who dominates from distance may falter when taken down. A grappler who thrives on the ground may struggle to handle aggressive punches. A martial artist who excels in the clinch might be blind to submissions. The question isn't who's better at one thing, it's who can survive and control all ranges. This is the reality check many martial arts never acknowledge. The rankings shift when we consider the full spectrum of combat. A style that looks impressive on the surface may hide glaring weaknesses when the fight leaves its comfort zone. So, as we revisit the 5 deadliest martial arts, the key question becomes clear: what happens if the fight goes somewhere you're not prepared for? Because no art is perfect, every strength has a weakness, and the deadliest fighters are the ones who recognize that, adapt, and exploit every opportunity across every range of combat. This is the moment the myth of the invincible style ends. From here on, it's about reality, the hard truth of fighting beyond the spotlight, beyond the dojo, and beyond the movies. The fight doesn't forgive ignorance, and the rankings don't lie. Mike Tyson: everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Chapter 5, Number 5, Karate. Karate is a striking art that commands respect. Powerful punches, snapping kicks, precise timing. Karate has trained countless fighters to strike with devastating accuracy. Stand a karateka across from an opponent, and you feel the danger. Every movement is calculated, every strike designed to end a fight quickly. But the truth is, karate shines primarily in standing ranges, long and mid-distance. Once the fight leaves that range, its power diminishes. Take a skilled karateka to the ground, and suddenly those kicks and punches are harder to land. The elegant strikes and rigid stances become liabilities. When the fight turns messy, karate's focus is speed, power, and form. Its traditional training often emphasizes striking and kata over grappling or ground control. So, if a fighter is taken down or pulled into a clinch by a wrestler or a ground specialist, karate struggles to maintain dominance. This isn't to say karate, in the right conditions, it can end a fight before it even reaches the ground. But in the unpredictable, no rules world of real combat, the standing range is only part of the story. Problem: limited ground game. Reality: dangerous when standing, vulnerable elsewhere. So, in our updated rankings, karate sits at number 5. Impressive but incomplete. A fighter who relies solely on karate can strike hard, but when control shifts, they are at risk, and in a fight that moves through every range, survival demands more than power, it demands versatility. Dishin Funakoshi. Karate begins and ends with respect. Chapter 6. Number 4. Aikido. Aikido is elegant. It flows. It redirects force instead of meeting it head-on. Every movement is designed to turn an opponent's strength against them. In theory, Aikido is a master class in control locks, throws, and joint manipulations that can neutralize even a stronger adversary. But there's a catch. Aikido works best when the attacker is predictable, the environment controlled, and the practitioner has time and space to execute precise techniques. Real fights are rarely that cooperative. Step into a no-rules arena against an aggressive striker or a relentless wrestler, and the game changes. Timing under pressure is critical, and in fast, chaotic exchanges, the openings Aikido relies on often disappear. A clinch, a sudden takedown, or a barrage of strikes can render its techniques far less effective. Aikido's strength is undeniable. With skill and calm, a practitioner can control and redirect energy in devastating ways. But its weakness is equally clear. When pressure increases and predictability vanishes, even the best techniques can fail. Problem: requires precise timing and cooperative opponents. Reality: exceptional in controlled scenarios, but challenged under aggressive, high-pressure fights. In our updated rankings, Aikido sits at number 4. It's a reminder that control and finesse are powerful, but without the ability to dictate where and how a fight happens, elegance alone can't carry a fighter to victory. The lesson is clear. Mastery of one style, no matter how sophisticated, isn't enough. Every range and scenario must be addressed because the fight doesn't wait for perfect conditions. Mori Hayashiba. True victory is victory over oneself. Chapter 7. Number 3. Kali. Kali, the Filipino art of weapons and flow, is deceptively deadly. Its strength lies in angles, rhythm, and awareness. Every strike, every block, every movement is part of a continuous chain like water, flowing from one technique to the next. A Kali practitioner can strike with hands, feet, elbows, or weapons, adapting instantly to an opponent's weaknesses. Kali teaches a mindset as much as technique, awareness of distance, anticipation of attacks, and the ability to flow from defense to offense seamlessly. In theory, it's a complete system. It's fast, unpredictable, and fluid, often catching opponents off guard. But there's a limitation. Kali shines in weapon-based combat or at ranges where striking and movement dominate. Once the fight goes to the ground, the dynamics change. Grappling, control, and submissions become critical, and Kali, for all its flow, is not specialized for this battlefield. Its techniques aren't built for holding position, controlling weight, or finishing on the ground. Problem: less specialized for ground control. Reality: devastating at range and with weapons. Vulnerable once the fight hits grappling or the mat. Kali remains conceptually complete, teaching adaptability and awareness. But in the reality of a full range, no rules fight, its edge diminishes when the battle shifts away from striking. In our updated rankings, Kali sits at number 3. A fighter who masters it can overwhelm in standing exchanges, but they must respect the realities of control and ground dominance, otherwise their brilliance may be neutralized. The takeaway is clear. Flow and awareness are powerful, but without the tools to control every range, even the sharpest edge can be blunted. Prominent masters often emphasize, the beauty of martial arts is that it is a journey of self-discovery and growth. Chapter 8. Number 2. Kung Fu, Chin Na. Kung Fu is legendary for its speed, precision, and devastating combinations. Add Chin Na, the art of joint locks and pressure, point control, and it becomes a system designed to dominate and immobilize. With Chin Na, a fighter can control an opponent's limbs, manipulate their balance, and neutralize threats with frightening efficiency. At close range, Kung Fu with Chin Na is exceptionally dangerous. Locks, holds, and sudden strikes can end a fight before it truly begins. The art teaches a mastery of body mechanics, leverage, and timing that few other styles match. A skilled practitioner can turn an attacker's strength against them, using control instead of raw power. But even this impressive system has limits. Against a skilled wrestler or aggressive grappler, Chin Na can be difficult to apply. Locks require precision and access, and under relentless pressure, the openings needed to execute them may vanish. The fight doesn't wait for perfect conditions, and in chaotic exchanges, even the most precise control can be compromised. Problem: access to locks and control is limited under pressure. Reality: devastating in close range control. But challenged by wrestlers or ground specialists, Kung Fu with Chin Na sits at number 2 in our updated rankings. It's a reminder that control and technical mastery are incredibly powerful, but without the ability to dictate every range of combat, even the most refined art can meet its match. The lesson is clear. Knowing how to immobilize and dominate is crucial, but adaptability across all ranges is what separates a good fighter from a truly deadly one. Northern Kung Fu. Styles from northern China focus on extended movements and long-range kicks. These systems excel at distance striking, mobility, and agility, giving the practitioner power in the long-range battlefield. However, if the fight is forced close or goes to the ground, their effectiveness can drop. Taekwondo, the long-range specialist. Taekwondo is all about distance, speed, and explosive kicks. Every technique is designed to strike from afar, keeping opponents at arm's length while delivering devastating power with legs. High kicks, spinning attacks, and rapid combinations allow a practitioner to control the fight before it ever reaches close quarters. Strengths: dominates long-range combat, making it extremely difficult for slower or less mobile opponents to close in. Athletic movement, flexibility, and dynamic footwork allow for rapid repositioning and counterattacks. Striking angles from above or around the opponent make traditional defenses harder to read. Limitations: Taekwondo excels at distance, but once the fight enters mid-range or close quarters, its power diminishes. It doesn't train extensively for clinches, takedowns, or ground fighting. A grappler or close-range specialist can neutralize its advantages. The focus on flashy or high kicks can create openings if mistimed or misjudged. Taekwondo demonstrates a key principle in this fight. Specialization creates dominance within a range, but vulnerability arises when the fight moves outside it. A fighter who relies solely on distance may find themselves struggling the moment the battle becomes tight, or the opponent shoots for a takedown. Problem: incredible long-range striking, but limited in clinch and ground control. Reality: devastating from afar, challenged when forced into mid-range or close-range combat. Southern Kung Fu. Southern styles prioritize strong stances, hand techniques, and close to mid-range power. They dominate when the fight is near, but like northern styles, they can be challenged when pushed out of their ideal range. Final note: Wing Chun. If there is one style that embodies both the strength and the limitation of specialization, it is Wing Chun. Built for close-range efficiency, Wing Chun eliminates wasted motion. Straight punches, trapping, and relentless forward pressure allow a practitioner to overwhelm opponents in tight exchanges. It doesn't rely on space or flash-only precision, timing, and control of the center line. In its ideal range, it is fast, direct, and devastating, but fights don't stay in ideal ranges. Against opponents who maintain distance, use powerful kicks, or force the fight to the ground, Wing Chun can be pushed outside its comfort zone, without the ability to control where the fight happens. Even the most efficient system can struggle. Wing Chun proves the point. Mastery of a single range creates danger, but Adaptability across all ranges creates dominance. Jet Li, Wushu is not about fighting. It's about improving yourself. Chapter 9. Number 1. Muay Thai versus the ground problem. Muay Thai is a striking art built for power, precision, and intimidation. Knees, elbows, kicks, and punches form a devastating arsenal. In the standing range, a Muay Thai fighter can dominate nearly anyone. Clinch work is strong, strikes are relentless, and conditioning is extreme. At mid and close range, few arts match its sheer efficiency and damage potential. But here's the problem: the fight doesn't always stay standing. A Muay Thai specialist may strike with unmatched force. But what happens when a skilled wrestler shoots in? What happens when the fight hits the ground? Suddenly, the devastating knees and elbows lose much of their impact. The clinch is no longer a weapon, it becomes a battleground for control. And on the map, a fighter who lacks grappling or submission training can find themselves trapped, unable to strike effectively or escape. Muay Thai excels where power and precision meet opportunity. But in a fight that spans all ranges, long, mid, close, and ground, its dominance is challenged. A fighter who can strike hard, but cannot control where the fight goes, risks everything once the action leaves their comfort zone. Problem: vulnerable when taken to the ground. Reality: devastating standing, challenged by takedowns and ground specialists. So, while Muay Thai sits at number 1 for standing range danger, it's not the ultimate martial art. True lethality requires more than striking, it requires control, adaptability, and finishing ability across all ranges. The lesson is clear: raw power alone can win battles. But to survive and dominate a fight in reality, a fighter must answer the question Muay Thai cannot. What happens when the fight hits the ground? Boxing, the art of the fist. Boxing is deceptively simple. 2 hands, 2 feet, 1 body, and an opponent staring back. Its brilliance lies in efficiency, precision, and timing. Every movement is calculated. The jab sets up power, the cross delivers impact, and footwork dictates the pace. Head movement, angles, and distance control allow a boxer to avoid strikes, while setting up counters that can end a fight in seconds. Strengths: dominates mid-range striking, where fists, elbows, and rapid combinations control the battlefield. Footwork and angles give the fighter constant mobility, making them hard to hit. Head movement and defensive awareness reduce vulnerability. Limitations: boxing is a standing range art. Once the fight moves to the clinch or the ground, punches lose power and control diminishes. It doesn't train for kicks, takedowns, or submissions. A skilled wrestler or grappler can neutralize even the fastest hands. Boxing is a lesson in focus and specialization. In the ring, it is devastating, but in a fight that doesn't stay standing, it is incomplete. Problem: powerful hands, but no answer to takedowns or ground control. Reality: devastating in mid-range exchanges, vulnerable outside its domain. Boxing proves a crucial truth: mastery of a single range can make you extremely dangerous, but survival in the real fight demands versatility across all ranges. Samart Pai Karun. You don't need power if you have timing. Chapter 10. The true number 1, the complete fighter. Here's the truth: no single traditional style wins every range. Striking, control, or ground dominance alone cannot guarantee victory. The deadliest fighter is the one who combines them all. A complete fighter blends the devastating strikes of Muay Thai, the takedown control of wrestling, and the ground finishing techniques of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. This creates a fighter who can adapt to wherever the fight goes, instead of being limited by one phase of it. Think about it: a fighter who can strike from distance with power and precision, clinch and control close-range exchanges, shoot for takedowns at will, survive and dominate on the ground, covers every stage of combat. This is not theory, this is what modern mixed martial arts has proven. The most effective fighters are not specialists in one area, but those who can transition between all of them without hesitation. The lesson is simple: mastery of one art is impressive, mastery of 2 is strong, but mastery across all ranges creates the most complete fighter. Every range becomes a responsibility as well as an opportunity. Every transition becomes a test of awareness. In the end, The most dangerous fighter is not defined by style, but by adaptability. The fight does not reward tradition, it rewards what works in the moment. Georges St. Pierre, the best fighter is not the one who can do everything, but the one who can adapt to anything. Bonus chapter: Beyond Style, the Individual Advantage. Fighting ain't just about the style you practice. Real fights are chaotic, unpredictable, and often unfair. That's where the individual fighter's attributes come into play. Everything beyond technique that can tip the scales. Height and reach can dominate from a distance. Size and strength can overwhelm opponents in grappling. Agility and dexterity allow rapid counters, evasive movement, and creative angles. Quickness, reaction time, and the ability to move before your opponent even knows what's happening can turn the tide in an instant. Even age matters. Younger fighters may have speed and stamina, while older fighters often bring experience, timing, and strategy. Both can be advantages, depending on how they're applied. Intelligence is critical. Reading an opponent, anticipating attacks, and making split-second decisions under pressure can be more deadly than raw power. A sharp mind lets a fighter exploit openings, conserve energy, and control the pace. Intimidation is another weapon. Confidence, presence, or unpredictability can unsettle opponents before a strike is even thrown. Talents and unusual skills, whether climbing, acrobatics, swimming, or wrestling, can give a fighter an edge in unexpected situations. Ultimately, the most dangerous fighters aren't just those with the best techniques, they're the ones who understand their own strengths, adapt to their weaknesses, and integrate their personal attributes with their martial skills. Quickness, agility, size, intelligence, experience, and even psychological presence all become part of the fighter's arsenal. Martial arts is never just about the art itself. It's about the person behind it, their body, mind, instincts, and ingenuity. That combination is what transforms a skilled practitioner into a truly deadly fighter. Muhammad Ali: it's not the size of the man in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the man. Bonus addendum: when the rules disappear, multiple attackers. Everything in this analysis assumes a one-on-one fight. That matters, because combat changes completely when more than one opponent is involved. The moment multiple attackers enter the equation, the ground becomes dangerous in a different way. Even if you successfully take one opponent down, you are no longer in control of the situation you are exposed. Striking exchanges become harder to manage, because attention and defense must split across multiple threats. Clinch fighting, grappling, and submissions, all of the skills that dominate in a controlled one-on-one environment, become riskier when there are other people moving in the space. Positioning and awareness start to matter as much as technique. This doesn't make grappling or striking less valuable. It simply changes the priority. Survival shifts from dominate the opponent to manage distance, stay mobile, and avoid being trapped. In multiple attacker scenarios, the most important skill is not finishing the fight. It's not getting surrounded in the first place. And that brings the entire discussion full circle. No martial art is complete in every context, because the rules of combat are not fixed. They change depending on how many opponents are in front of you. Conclusion: the real fight. Let's go back to the ring. 5 identical fighters. Same size, same strength, same skill in their own style. The only difference: how they handle every range of the fight. The fight starts standing. It always does. Hands fly, kicks snap, bodies clash. But the fight doesn't stay there. Sooner or later, someone shoots in, someone lands a takedown, and suddenly, everything changes. The standing strikes that once dominated are now limited. The clinch becomes a test of control. The ground is no longer a place to escape. It's the battlefield where fights are truly decided. The fighter who understands all ranges, long, mid, close, and ground moves like water. They strike where needed, control where the fight goes, and finish decisively. Every transition becomes an advantage, every moment an opportunity. Martial arts isn't just about mastering a single style. It's about adaptation, awareness, and versatility. It's about knowing what to do when you're far, when you're close, when you're grabbed, and when you hit the mat. The fight doesn't care about what you trained. It only cares about what you can do. And the fighter who can strike, control, and finish across every range reduces their openings and maximizes their chances in a one-on-one encounter. But even that assumes one opponent. In reality, violence doesn't always happen on equal terms. When multiple attackers are involved, the nature of combat changes completely. The ground becomes far more dangerous. Clinching becomes a liability, and even highly skilled fighters must prioritize awareness, movement, and positioning over engagement. In those moments, the goal is no longer to dominate every range. It is to avoid being trapped in any one of them. This doesn't invalidate the idea of complete skill, it reinforces it, because the more variables a fighter can understand, the better they can adapt when the situation stops following rules. In the end, mastery is not in a single technique or style. It's in understanding the fight as a whole, and being ready for every level it can take you to. That is the real fight. That is the fight that wins every time.